So the recording just goes somewhere, Michelle, that I don't have to worry about?
You don't have to worry about it. I'll take care of that part.
Okay, good. I don't want to worry about that. All right, so it is, what time is it? It's just 7 o'clock. So why don't we start the meeting for the HRIC September 10th, December 10th, December 8th meeting. Sorry about this.
October? You're saying December.
Yeah, I'm so lost. I was reading the wrong thing here. October 8th meeting, starting with the Halls Road Improvements Committee. And do we have a approval of the September 10th minutes?
I will move that we approve the minutes.
Okay, anyone?
I second.
I second.
Okay. So let's see. Trying to think of what else we can do while we're waiting for a couple of people. I wanted to at the end of the last month's meeting, after the presentations, there were still a couple people that were on the from the presenters that were on the WebEx meeting. So I didn't feel like it was fair to read the recommendations into the actual meeting. But I think we should have this on the record, only because we did go to the effort to follow Tim's recommendation to get some professional recommendations. So why don't I read a couple of these just so we have this on the record. The first one was from Ken Biega, and he said, after speaking with you and reviewing the info you sent me, Newman would be the best choice. I would recommend that you have Newman make a presentation to you and your committee to make sure that you are comfortable with the individual you'll be working with. Also, if fee is an issue, you could ask them to match the low fee, but as you know, you are buying hours, so they can only go so low. The second person that we have on our list here is Jeff Jacobson from Jacobson and Associates, who's a civil engineer in Chester. And he's done a lot of work in engineering all around the area here, including in the Chester and East Haddam, etc. He gave us a pretty long review, and he said, I'm going to just paraphrase some of this because let's see, I've read through the 2019 Halls Road Improvement Concept Development document, which was very well prepared and clearly summarized the town's overall objectives and goals, along with providing some specific perspective as to the desired character and aesthetic. This document provides a good foundation for the development of more comprehensive master plan. As we discussed, the selection of a consultant is difficult to make without more comprehensive evaluation of similar type completed master plans and a committee interview to judge the consultant's experience, initial thoughts, approach, and compatibility. I have also reviewed the committee's HRIC master plan scope of work, Halls Road consultant analysis, and each of the 3 consultant proposals that you provided me. My initial reaction after reviewing this information are as follows. Newman, the Newman proposal is for a true master planning effort that would build upon the committee's initial work, test different development scenarios, and develop a comprehensive framework to guide both the town and property owners towards revitalizing a common development goal. One item of concern should be discussed during the interview is that Newman characterized as estimates for advisor fees, civil, traffic engineer, market analyst, and that Newman will work with the town to purchase those services at the best price from firms that Newman's can recommend, together with any that the town may suggest. In this regard, it would appear to me that there may be some uncertainty in the total fee that would ultimately be charged to the town. I would have much preferred for them to have named consultants that they would have worked would have worked with on similar projects, along with definitive costs, with the caveat that they would be subject to town approval. Robert Orr, the proposal appeared to be oriented towards providing a roadway corridor design study based on the committee concept development document with the overall master planning, if there really is much at all, being more of a secondary effort, while the scope of services for the traffic analysis and road layout was very detailed. I thought that the brief paragraph outlining services to be provided for the planning aspect was vague at best and rather disappointing, with only partial examples provided of what was done elsewhere, with no specifics regarding Old Lyme. Furthermore, the planning effort appeared to me to be focused on development of a village district zoning regulation. Bsc, a detailed and well-defined scope of services, the effort appears to be little more weighted toward infrastructure and implementation. While this proposal does include some defined planning analysis, it seems to approach the planning as more of a refinement and update of the committee concept development document, which is referred to in the proposal as the master plan, and their efforts as the master plan update. To summarize my opinion regarding the three proposals, I do not feel that ROA proposal was very responsive, particularly regarding the desired master planning effect. If it is the committee's desire to develop a comprehensive master plan with overall development guidelines for both the town and developers, I thought that Newman's proposal provided the best overall balance between planning and engineering functions. However, if the committee is looking to place a greater emphasis on infrastructure and plan implementation, the BSC proposal was more detailed in this regard. Hopefully this will provide some help, et cetera, et cetera. And Bill Mulholland, who is the zoning official in East Lyme, gave us this information. I think you have two firms that are more appropriate to perform the tasks necessary to produce your desired effect. They are priced competitively. The third firm is a low bidder. However, I am not convinced they can provide the necessary detail and expertise and deliverables in a timely fashion. He's referring to BSC in this. You need a firm that can address the sewer question. Without this capability, you will find you do not have a project. You will want a combination of expertise that can address the desired layout, architectural design, character, and engineering. All are important to the end result. It appears to me that both firms have similar levels of expertise. I think either will be helpful. I would interview both firms if you haven't already and ask the pertinent questions. One very important is, again, the sewer. If you have to apply to the state for a hybrid sewer system, you need to know timelines and costs so that you can market the final product to the public and potential investor and or the property owners. It has taken 20 years to turn Niantic around, and we still have a long way to go. Patience is a must. Hopefully my view is helpful. So that is the professional recommendations that we got after a couple of weeks of finding people and talking with them. And I just wanted that to go on the record. I think Jacobson's suggestion that we should ask two questions. One of BSC, which is how are they equipped to do the extra work of zoning and guidelines, was one question that I have spent the last week finding out about. And the other question was to get Newman to come to the table on what their real numbers are for those consultant fees. So I did do that. And I know that there's a bunch of us who prefer BSC because we've done work with them, and they are engineers. And in looking at their website, I was concerned because they didn't have anything that showed me information about doing full master plans. It was mostly streetscape. And I've been working with a gentleman named Michael Pluckman, and he's a landscape architect. And he explained to me that they have in fact done zoning and guidelines, and it is not reflected on their website. So they went back and put up a meeting with me and their planner, who represents a lot of the zoning and guideline information, and also sent me some examples of that, which I sent to you guys this afternoon. I just got that recently. So I was encouraged that they have a little bit more breadth than what their website shows. So it's always good to ask extra questions. Newman also went back and worked on their numbers. At first, they came in with a pretty high number with their consultant fees. And when I explained to them that was kind of way beyond what we were going to do, they went back to the table and looked closer at what they could come up with. So they have since come back with some numbers that they feel are representative of what we're looking at to get done. They had mentioned that because we had done a pretty comprehensive job for the town in 2019, putting together a vision proposal, that helps eliminate doing extensive research and planning in terms of layouts, because they originally were going to give us 3 different options to follow. So I did send those things out. Basically where the numbers are is the BSC came back with a number of 46,500, and Newman Architects came back with 47,500. So both of those are within our realm of what we have for a budget, which is 48,000. And I think at this point we should have maybe a quick further discussion and then an official vote. A movement to take a vote on who we want to recommend to the Board of Selectmen. So I'll leave it open to you guys at this point.
Last time I remember when we had a discussion after the presentations, just on a personal basis, we sort of felt that the BSC group was more our kind of people. The other guys were slick and fast and all kinds of nice looking stuff, but really were just a little too, I don't want to use just a little too slick really, and not going to get into what we really wanted so much. And I think there were other people who felt that way as well.
Okay. Howard,
I actually had, kind of weighed in favor of BSC. I did like that Portland, Connecticut
Right.
streets, the design package that they had prepared for them. That was pretty good, and it gets a little further along in the breadth of what we like, but I kind of reconsidered things and wondered really whether they were a little too narrow in their focus in general. But they are an engineering company, so I guess we'd expect that. So I'm a little more ambivalent than I was last week in terms of the fact that the other outfit has a kind of a broader perspective on the design, streetscape design, things like that. I don't know what to make, Edie, of, and this is kind of off of the two of them, but Mulholland asked or put forward, if you haven't got a hybrid sewer part of the plan, then you've got nothing. What does that mean? Is that valid, or is it just something?
He's talking from his experience as a from Niantic, which, at one point East Lyme decided to put in a real valid sewer system. And that's what's allowed a lot of the changes that's happened in East Lyme. I think that's his experience in East Lyme. And I don't think he realizes that in Old Lyme, predominantly, it's up to the property owners to make decisions about what kind of septic system they need to use. I mean, it has to be up to code and everything, but it's typically left to the property owner, not to the town, to provide a municipal sewer system. So, that's definitely his experience, and it allowed for a lot of development in East Lyme. And I think that's where that statement is coming from.
Edie, I'm curious, you've been more into the weeds than anyone else here on this work, talking to these two companies and getting all the information. I'd just be curious on your assessment of comparing the two and the scope, and can they both accomplish what we want? And, what's your thinking on this, and are there any real major differences that you see that we should, consider?
I do think that what I've heard from the professional reactions is architects are more in a position to do a full type of master plan. And, we might call Newman slick, or you might call them very professional. I mean, for me, in my experience, I call them very professional. I think that in looking up their references, I heard from multiple people saying they're very good at listening to the client and giving the client what they need, as opposed to, some design firms just want to be stars and do what they're going to do, and you get what you get. But these guys are much more interested in working with the client. I think the BSC, if we as a committee stay tight with them, we can probably get what we need for the town. I'm very concerned that, if we're going to spend this amount of money on a master plan, we need to get something that's going to last into the future, not just be something that works for a short period of time, or, we didn't get everything we needed because we didn't realize what we needed. But I think that if we can get the zoning piece and the guidelines included in this from the BSC, I think we could work with them. It's, I believe that the reason we started even talking with them was because of the recommendation from Tim. So, I would be happy to work with either group. I think my only concern with Newman at this point is they came in with a much higher number, and I'm not sure that we would get everything we need from them at this lower number, which they were trying to get to in order to have a viable bid. It may be a case of more additional services down the road to get a real document that will work with zoning, for instance. But I don't really know. I mean, I've seen stuff on their website and examples of their work that shows that they know how to do all of that. And I haven't, other than these few new examples I've gotten from BSC, I haven't seen them as that's their bread and butter, that they do that all the time. So it's, I can't really say. I think absolutely you got to go with these people. And, I want to come up with a group that we all feel comfortable with, because it's going to, be a longer term relationship. And if people are unhappy with the selection, then we shouldn't be making that recommendation.
Can I ask a question on the proposal on the email that you sent today?
Yeah.
Bsc, September 24th, page 6. So following services not included in our proposed scope. I was just surprised at a lot of the things that are not included.
Okay.
Is this the same with Newman, that these items, like, I would think that surveying would be included. I would think that the tracing and the property mapping and the environmental assessment of any kind, that wetland delineation, that kind of threw me. I was thinking, that all of this was wrapped up in the $46,000. This is all, I mean, do we need all of those 7 items, especially the legal, the attorney fees? That's regarding the zoning. I noticed that too.
Which number was that you're looking at?
Well, legal fees are number 7, but I believe it was the page before that, and I only printed out page 6 just before the meeting, but I noticed they said regarding the zoning language that it would either have to be a town-appointed attorney or an attorney that they would subcontract with.
I'm sorry, what document is this? Which of the proposals?
Yeah,
It's one of the emails that came today. It
She's
was
looking at page 6.
proposal dated it's page 6 of September 24th Bsc proposal.
So the things they're not going to do.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I skimmed it and I just wanted to see if I missed something on page 5. But I just looked at that and I said, gee, the surveying I know is expensive. I know that, assessment of environmental, like that's definitely in wetlands and all, like, isn't that relevant to this project because of the location? Is this mean to say that all of these things that need to be done, they would do for, it says, if required, are additional fees?
okay.
I'm thinking that's a lot of fees and a lot of time.
Yeah, so there are, wait a minute, I'm just going back up to that because I want to make sure I'm on the same page as you.
Right.
So,
Like I said, I'm sorry I didn't print out the whole thing. I just printed out that page 6.
okay, yeah, so this is the list of things not included. So land surveying and boundary surveying, they're basically going from the GIS drawings that exist for the town. The land surveying would come later with a formal engineered drawing, because this is really a master plan to give you an overall view of what you're trying to get to. It's not an engineered drawing that would come later once that's the kind of thing we'd get an RFP for and have, actual detailed, what I call construction documents, but that's
Right.
more for architecture than engineering. But so that's the land surveying would not be part of that. So that seems reasonable to me.
So that is something that we would need, or we don't need that?
Not for the master plan. We
Okay.
need it. We would need it for final construction and building. And
Okay.
including all the property mapping, let's see, design specs. Yeah, I think they're basically saying they're not including the detailed drawings that would come as an engineered set of drawings to do the streetscape changes, which is really the only thing that the town is going to be doing in the future, but it's not part of the master plan.
Okay, so we're not doing like the environmental assessment and
No.
that type of thing?
No, they obviously have to, in their first stage of work, they have to find out what is really possible or not possible. So that means they have to know, how much in the set area of land that we're planning to work in, and given the geography of rivers and rocks and all of that, how much we can plan for any kind of septic system, for instance, and wells. So that's the kind of stuff that they would have to find out, but they will not be doing extensive, conversations with DEP or, I think they will get close to that, but they're doing what they can do for an assumption, but they won't be doing legal documents. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
And then how about number 7, as far as, and I did read somewhere in this about zoning changes, that it's either our attorney or their attorney
Yeah.
to
I did
do
ask
zoning
about that.
changes.
Yeah, I did ask about that with both groups, and basically, Bsc is suggesting that their document would give us enough text, if you will, describing a village district, and then a lawyer would need to turn it into the legal document that it needs to be. And we can either use their lawyer or the town's lawyer, which I guess the town does have a lawyer that they hire for things. But I asked, so what kind of fees are we talking about? What would a lawyer fee be? Because, lawyers can be expensive. And they said, well, $6,000 to $8,000, which sounded good to me. Now, when I talked with Newman about this, they said, well, it really depends on how detailed this document has to get, and it could be $10,000 to $20,000. So, I am not a professional on this level, so I'm taking what I'm hearing and giving it to you guys. So,
Okay.
Oh, I was working a little bit on the zoning piece, and at least it sounded to me from the zoning commission that those kind of fees are, as long as the working document is being helped along, let's say, by the zoning commission, you really only would probably just to have somebody sprinkle fairy dust over it and say, oh yes, that's legal in Connecticut. So
Right.
I don't get the feeling that we would need to worry about that kind of a fee running up to the $20,000 range, because we don't.
Okay.
It's fairly straightforward stuff, I think. I mean, if you're going into multi-use, that complicates it a little bit, but if the zoning commission is working with you, I think it'll roll through without huge expense.
Yeah, and I think that
somebody has to do the groundwork, but
right, the groundwork is what we're hoping it's coming from our master plan, so that, because we do know that the zoning commission is not in a position and has never offered to write this village district zone. So that's what we're hoping to get out of the planning process of the master plan. So yeah, I think you're right. We need to have a lawyer give it their blessing. But but the aim is to get the main documentation done by the planning firm that we choose. So
can I circle back a little bit on Deborah's question when she was asking about BSC and all these things that they say that they're not providing under this 46,000? Would you say, Edie, in your interpretation that that Newman has a similar list, even though they don't lay it out like this, but they have limits, I think, that seem very similar to me, and going into the nitty gritty dirt detail.
And I think they also, in order to get us to the number we wanted to get at, they have simplified their proposal to a large degree. They're not giving us, 3 options of different plan ideas. They're not giving us multiple vignettes of the design. They are going to give us guidelines, but not down to the very minimal detail of everything. Where was the other piece I had? The zoning that they are planning to give us is fairly simplified. It's a framework that then would be finalized. And I think this is where I was a little concerned, because I knew when they came back with their real number, it was like $90,000. And I said, we can't do that. And that was because they got real numbers from their engineers. when they realized that a lot of their work that was more of the design oriented stuff was not as necessary, they brought their number down. But I'm concerned that they may not give us enough. I just don't know whether we're going to get pretty much the same option from both firms, because one is an engineering firm trying to be a full service firm, and another is a architecture firm who's trying to come down in their numbers for us, and assuming would have additional services if we needed more work. So I am concerned about what I'm hearing from both of them. I mean, I think that BSC is very anxious to get this project, and they feel that they can do the real full plan that includes not just streetscape. They did show me examples, which I sent on to you guys. So I am worried that Newman, in order to get their number to where they needed it to be for us, they've dropped down a few things, which may fit into that question of, are those all additional services, like a deeper version of the zoning, or a deeper, more plans and options for the actual master plan itself.
Well, I'll tell you from my experience of the last several years, since we started the sewer project, the Federation of Beaches and down in the beach areas,
Mhm.
there's no question. We started off, and the other presidents from any other beach associations, this is the biggest project we ever undertook, and we were all new to it. Fast forward 7 years, I can tell you it was a fast learn, and that, quite frankly, nothing of what we accomplished. And we're at the 95-yard line, but the next 5 yards are going to be the most difficult. But nothing could have been accomplished every step of the way without the engineers. Whether they have internal architecturals under house, the synergy that we were permitted to use because they were engineers really did help in budgeting, as opposed to going out and just hiring a piecemeal it with architects and then engineers, and then they have to get together and talk the same language.
Mm-hmm.
But the engineers were the ones, and still, and in my opinion, they're new lawyers, because they are not cheap. We're north of $1 million in engineers fees, and we don't have a shovel in the ground yet. Yet we couldn't have done it without the attorneys because of all the easements we've needed as well, not with just DEP and 156, but with Amtrak and private properties. So it's safe to say if they didn't factor in those attorney fees and their engineering fees, I can't imagine they could ever shoehorn in those fees under 48,000.
Well, I think they actually put the engineering fees in there. They are definitely in there, and they dropped their fees down. For Newman, they definitely are working with a very experienced engineering company, Malone McBroom.
Yep.
And who's actually done some work in Old Lyme as well, I believe. So they definitely were keeping the engineers on board. The engineer numbers came up, and then they went back and looked at their fees and what they were doing and dropped their fees more than the engineers' fees. So you're right. The engineering is key to this, and they also have a lot to do with how to help with that zoning piece. So I think that is still there, but typically you hire an architect and they get all the contractors to work for them. So that's why they act as your coordinator as well. But I think what I'm hearing is from BSC that their landscape architect, who is our main connection, Michael, would be spearheading the whole project and making sure that that any massing or building descriptions are in sync with what needs to be here in Old Lyme. Any other thoughts from people?
My only other concern, again, it just comes from experience in the last several years with the shoreline property project, is if contingencies and project creep with regards to limitations on that.
Mm-hmm.
That has thrown a tizzy into parts of our project where we really had to go back, even though the referendum and locally private communities had passed through our WPCAs. It got to a point where we had to go back and readdress this with our association members because it started at X amount and ended up now at the 95 line. We're about to go into the bid process, much greater than everyone anticipated several years ago. Understood that was several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not doing a construction project right now.
Correct. Just master planning.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is if the contract is 48,000 or whatever is awarded, do we have, is there no contingency for them to come back and say, well, you know, to finish the master plan, we're going to need X?
I think there's more option of that happening with Newman than with BSC.
I think you're right.
I might want to suggest we put a cap of 5% contingency,
Yep.
or we're held hostage and say, we can't submit this work. I know we've done $45,000 of work for you, but we need actually to do $20,000 more before we can submit this to the town.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. I'm just trying to get
it does make sense. And I think it's, you know, I mean, I think that's the thing. We want to make sure we get what we need, but we also get it without project creep, which, you know, I've been in this business a while, and lots of times you lowball something and expect the numbers to go up. I mean, that's the way you get the project.
Well, BSC's been pretty constant with their level. They haven't really changed much since last time we met.
Yeah, I mean, we asked them to add in what we thought was missing, and they did. So, you know, I think that's the part of it that was important to make sure was included, because that would hopefully, I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, is make sure that we have all the pieces we need in the master plan before we start saying, yeah, let's do it, you know, because I hate wasting money on things. So, you know, it's easy to go there, and it's, you know, I did speak with them, BSC, about the issue that, you know, we don't have a committee full of professionals in the building business, and it's hard for us to all know how to make these decisions. And, you know, they said they were very aware of that, and that they, you know, that's why they want to make sure that they can spend enough time talking with the committee about the findings and the process that they're going through as they go through it. So, you know, I think it's just a decision at this point to
at some point it does. The good news is we only have to make a decision, 1 out of 2.
Yes.
Can we write into the contract like frequency of invoices, so we can at least see it coming if they're coming in high and they haven't hit certain milestones? I come from the world of firm fixed price contracts, so this idea of scope creep is foreign to me, because I put in the requirement and then I've had vendors come back to me after the work is done and beg me for more money because it ended up costing them more to do the work than than they had put in their quotes. They actually took a bath, you know, they actually took a loss on it. But sounds like in this environment, they get to come back and ask for more if they reach a level where they're going to go up underwater on it.
I mean, I think basically the BSC was telling us that this was their fee, and I believe they bill on a 30-day basis, but I could be wrong. I mean, he did say that he's provided the town previously with the what's it called? He's got a basic document that the town uses for all the details of how we get this thing done. So I'm just looking for my notes here. A municipal contract with a proposal. So the municipal contract should spell out how often we're billed, and that this is a set number. We're not going over it unless we ask for more things. If they have to do extra things to get the contract done, that should be included in what they're doing. If we ask for more things, then it becomes additional services. That's the typical way these things work. Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, in your experience, you've gone back to ask for more things, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's not really included in the contingency, the 5%. That's only after you awarded a bid, but it's a change order to
Yes.
to the original contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's why it's so important to do the front end loading or the heavy lifting prior to awarding anything, because and that's certainly an attorney who's going to draft that up, because we have found in all the various contracts and agreements, and we just finalized one today with the project, that there are some loopholes and things that slip through the cracks, and if they're not addressed initially thoroughly, then you're going to pay for it down the road, if in fact you need to ask for more.
Well, did you guys get a chance? I know I did this at the very last minute because I didn't get it till the very last minute, but did anybody get a chance to read through either of these proposals?
I read through Bsc thoroughly. Newman
Okay.
too big, and I didn't get through it. And also, I looked at the price, so I didn't read that one, but I read Bsc.
I haven't read either one, Edie. I apologize, but I was expecting to do that tonight.
Well, it was a last minute submission too. I was kind of bummed out that I couldn't get that to you guys earlier, but I've been working away at this thing. So, but I think maybe what we should, I guess there's two things at the question here. One is, who do we think is most capable of doing this work based on who we want to work with? And two, will there be more things that if we all look through these proposals? I mean, I hate to push this out for another month to make a decision on our recommendations, because I do believe that there's some feelings among the committee that BSC is the preferred vendor. And at this point, I feel as though, I mean, until I got the answers from them about being able to do the zoning and the guidelines, I was not convinced of that. I was worried that we didn't have that information from them. But I think we could work with them. And I would like to work with someone that the whole committee feels good about, not just me. I mean, I think before the presentations last month, I felt that Newman was a hands down. We should definitely work with them. When they came back with a much higher number and then a lower number based on sort of chiseling away on what their offerings were, it concerned me. So,
you're very nice.
Yeah, I have that concern where they started off at a very high number and then had to really reduce it significantly.
Yeah.
It leaves kind of a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth as to, what will really occur when they get into the project. And that's, they psychologically, they always got to be thinking about that. Gee, we dropped our price, and no one likes to, as a seller, drop their price significantly and ever feel good about it. So it's the one thing that just, all things being considered, as long as both companies are providing us with what we really need, that difference just doesn't quite feel good to me to have them all of a sudden. And I'm a little I hate to see people start off at why didn't you think about trying to find a way to reduce your price initially? Why do we have to bang you over the head and then all of a sudden, there's always that little bit of, I guess, distrust. Maybe that's a strong word, but it's there, and so that's just kind of doesn't feel quite right.
No, I think that's very valid. And I think, I mean, I asked them, why are you interested in working with us? I'm sure you're not going to make much money on this no matter what. And they said, well, we would love to be able to partner with Old Lyme, and maybe down the road we would get other projects with the developers. That was their honest explanation, which is fine. Because honestly, working with towns is a lot less lucrative than working with developers. So,
Oh, yeah.
and if we were some super wealthy place that we could spend $98,000 on a master plan, that'd be no problem. But I don't think that that's what we have an appetite for. And so, I think, yeah.
I have a question for Tim, where there's some concern that maybe we're overlooking something on any of the two contracts we put forward. Tim, what's the process once the committee puts a contract forward to the Board of Selectmen? Would a town attorney take a look at that and catch things that perhaps we didn't?
Well, you could certainly have a review. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Fine.
That would be a downstream review. And the Board of Finance would also be involved. I think that the committee would have to ferret out all the particulars as to what needs to be done.
Yeah.
I think I may have mentioned this before, but I think before we sign something, whoever we choose, we could get them in before we actually sign anything and say, okay, here's what our vision is. What do you think we need? For instance, going back to the sidewalk, which I think was fairly universally embraced, can we talk to the DOT and ferret out any early problems that they may have with our plan before we hire an expensive consultant to do that? I know BSC knows a lot of the players in District 2 DOT land, and perhaps we could be introduced to some of the people and say, get them out. They're state employees. We could get them to come to Lyme and just have a preliminary walk around and say, this is our vision. Do you think we can have a crosswalk here, a crosswalk there? I think I may have mentioned when I talked to a guy in DOT about moving the push button for the signal at the Big Y entrance. He said, no, that'll be in the wetlands and you can't do that. And I was appalled that we weren't.
Well, I think, Tim, the problem of trying to get the DOT involved before we have a full plan is going to be very fraught. They don't really care to look at things. I've talked to several people about this. They want to look at a real plan, serious vision that we can't just say, walk around and look at this. That's not how they work. The BSCs explained that to me as well as Newman. And I think it's, in order to go forward, we do need to have an actual plan and an actual set of documents to get grants from. And, both groups are very well versed with the DOT people and, know how to work with them. No matter what we do, it's got to be in sync with them. But I don't think we can do it without a full plan.
Don't you think we could get the simple answers, such as if we wanted to have a crosswalk going between Andy Deli and the post office, for instance, or have a push button? I mean, these are fun. I mean, if we can't get across the road because DOT is going to be uncooperative, we need to know that sooner than later. So, I mean, it's one little element. The master plan, I mean, how major a scope of master plan do we need at this point? I think often the committee said this might take 20 years for some of this to come to fruition. And if some of the landowners, such as Old Lyme Stores, really doesn't have an appetite to tear down buildings and move them and all that sort of thing, we could have a master plan, but it's likely not going to happen during our lifetimes, except for you young people.
Well, I think we've got a lot of things at hand here. One is we've got the demise of retail even before COVID. So we're going to be seeing Halls Road looking for some way to sustain itself. We certainly don't want to lose our supermarket. And without having a plan in place for the future or from the immediate streetscape, we're just going to sit and do nothing. You know, and what will happen is change will happen in a way that we don't want to see it, where we see stores closing, we see a commercial district only that can't absorb any other types of building types, and you're going to get something that goes dormant. You know, we can let that happen. You know,
What I was hearing Tim say is just, you know, like a broad stroke. If we find out from DOT, this is completely hypothetical, that they're not going to allow any development or sidewalks anywhere close to a I-95 exit that will be undergoing, you know, reconstruction or widening of the highway. Just a broad stroke, like knowledge of, yeah, go ahead with the plan and bring us your plan. Once you have it, to talk about specifics, or to say, don't even bother with this because we're not allowing anything for the next 5 years. And that's completely hypothetical off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. So my question was really, do we need to have this completely nailed down in terms of every element of the proposal, or would perhaps at the finance level or the town attorney level, we could perhaps depend on them to catch things that we won't?
Well, I just might mention that when Edie and I met with them and actually walked around Halls Road, they were both, it was very interesting. We didn't raise the issue, but both companies said, talking to the DOT is you have to use a lot of finesse, a lot of experience, and without a master plan that really gives you a significant detail of what you want to do and that the town is really committed to that, they won't tell you that because they don't want to set a precedent for somewhere else. So they're not going to really give you an answer, and you're going to get a much better answer when you have that plan. It would be nice to do, I agree, but I mean, they were both organizations emphatic about that, and we didn't raise it. We just asked about the process, and we said, we understand you have relationships with DOT, tell us about that and how that works, and both of them were pretty adamant on that issue, that
and they also,
your chances of success were much better with a plan.
They also brought up the fact that one of the big changes at the DOT is embracing this new idea of complete streets, which is something that up until 10 years ago, they were not interested in making any changes to places if it slowed their traffic down. That's all they cared about. Now they're beginning to realize that neighborhoods are really important, that sidewalks are important, that bike paths are important, that a whole neighborhood area, if that's what you're proposing to them, is important. It's something that's changed. They've got newer people into the process now, so that they've actually begun to embrace that idea. Up until 10 years ago, that didn't happen at all. So, you know, with a full plan saying we want to make a neighborhood on this street that is right now a fast pass through, that's a different thing than asking, can I put a sidewalk here? You know, can I put a crosswalk right here? You know, if you don't show why you want a crosswalk right here, because in the future, you're hoping to have buildings closer to the road, they don't know that. You know, they don't know what you're talking about. So that's, again, if you have a full plan to show them, that helps them understand what you're trying to get to.
Well, if we sit down with BSC and we say, here's the Yale school plan,
We don't have a Yale school plan. We have the plan that came from the committee in 2019, just to clarify that. There is no Yale school plan.
All right.
The Yale School put it together.
No, they didn't. We did. The committee did last summer.
Well, I was here and I don't remember.
No, but we did all the drawings. We saw some original ideas from Yale, but all that presentation information, that did not come from Yale. That came from the committee.
What presentation?
The presentation we put out in 2019 in the summer. That we had open houses that we brought around.
Oh, that
and
stuff,
shown
sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's not Yale. That was us.
Well, it was based on Yale.
It was based on some good suggestions from Yale, yeah, but it's
Oh,
not,
yeah?
it's not just their plan.
So is that plan pretty much the same as what would be contemplated going forward, or would it be a much different plan?
Well, it will be the starting point for doing the master plan. And once you find out, any restrictions or issues that we have with DOT or any other thing, that will start to work into how that plan ends up looking. It's
Okay,
really
so
the
take
starting point.
for instance, the septic disposal. Did the plan address how that would be taken care of?
No, it was just a vision. It was just a vision plan. And the septic was expected to be done by the property owners.
But what we were trying to do is just give, we had these concepts, and the idea is we want to present something to the town. So we wanted to give a pictorial idea of the elements that people told us they want at our public meetings. We want to try to give a pictorial of what that might look like. And that's really what the plan is. It was never, and we put out a question and answer thing. And the first question and answer was, what is the master plan? And when the answer was, we have none, that we have some ideas and concepts, and here's some pictorials of what that might look like, but it's never a plan. I just have one other point going back to the question of why you need a master plan. One of the two, I forget which, but they also said there's sort of a political game involved with the DOT too. One thing they really like to see when they have a master plan, it gives them a sense that the community's behind it, because you went ahead and went through this process that we're going through, and that you got all these approvals, and therefore the community's behind it. And that puts some weight on your request and lets them, and they have a far more likelihood of acting seriously on your plan, and it's more difficult for them to turn it down that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
I propose a vote.
Okay. So you want to spell out what that vote is?
Well, I think we just have the two viable contract parties, and BSC is one, and Newman is the other. And I guess we'll just go through everybody present and see who votes for one or the other. You think?
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So, Bud, you're seconding the idea of having a vote?
Yes.
Cheryl? Cheryl, you're muted. You're muted.
Carol, you're muted.
You're muted.
I know. I'm getting there. Sorry. Everything's on delay on my screen. The voices are delayed. Everything's delayed. My question is, should we instead have someone put a vote for a particular firm, and then we're either yes or no on that? I mean, does it matter for Robert's rules?
Probably not, but it's probably better to have voting on one. So I'll move to vote for the BSC contract.
And I'll second that.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'm ex officio, so I don't vote.
I
Howard, are
can't
you
see
voting?
Howard's. I can't
I-
see Howard's.
I didn't see Howard or Deb.
Okay, I think it's a unanimous vote.
Is it? Oh, I'm not on mute, right? Okay.
Howard and Deb are muted.
I said yes.
I'm gonna be.
Yes, okay.
Too.
Okay.
All right, I got that in the notes.
Okay, so I would recommend that we all read their proposal. If you see anything you can imagine we need to ask a second question about before we get their final, official proposal that will go with a municipal contract, we send an email to me and I will do one last question with them. And then, I will make sure that that's included in what we get from them.
I think to make everyone feel comfortable, Tim and the others, Cheryl, who raised that issue, I think it would be worthwhile to specifically ask them the DOT question again.
Okay.
That just review with them. Is there a way, without jeopardizing approvals, to get some preliminary idea of what might float and what not? And just confirm what they told us, because that's what I heard them clearly say. But now that we're dealing with them very specifically, maybe there is some things they can do. So I think it's worth answering, since that has a concern of people on the committee.
Yeah.
I think
And
it's
I
a
also-
very good suggestion. They seem like really good people to work with. That was the impression I got when we interviewed them last week or last month. And I think they'll do their best. Whether they can is another story.
And I think I'm going to also make sure that I'm very clear about what their zoning piece is really providing, because I want to make sure that we have enough to get a blessing as opposed to a full right from a lawyer, because I think we want to make sure that's in the cards.
So what would be their short-term assignment once we get over the initial meet and greet? Will they be basically taking the committee's plan as it was developed and moving it forward?
Yes.
Or will they review it? Personally, I still have concerns about the road that comes in by the post office and goes around behind and stuff like that. So is the plan as was developed last summer going to be the plan going forward, or is that going to be discussed?
So just to clarify, what's the name of that road? We call it the extra road going behind. First of all, there's plenty of issues about that may or may not make that possible. One being that it can't go onto state property, and it would have to go onto private property, and that would be a whole question that would probably, it may be something that has to happen down the road. So the way the master plan will work is they will start out with their first phase, which is preparation and learning about their constraints, working with the DOT, learning about the market study, understanding the strategies for infrastructure, and getting an actual plan together based on those constraints. So that means that what we've given them as what they call it our master plan, and that they're just doing an update to it. But we know that there's plenty of things that may or may not work with that plan. That was really a vision plan. It was not a master plan.
Not really a master plan, right?
So that's why we need them to do the job that needs to be done by professionals. This was just a committee vision. It was not a final plan. It was based on some original ideas from Yale, and then our work with that. So yes, it will actually change quite a few times from what we see today.
Yeah, I think they both emphasized that you want to start off what you might get ultimately, but realize there's going to be a whole bunch of iterations, and you're going to be compromising along the way as to what is actually feasible once you get in there. And you just don't know that. And that's the process. And I bet, and Matt, is that
Yeah.
similar to what you've experienced?
Absolutely, Howard. This is an exercise in feasibility,
Right.
at most.
Yeah.
Nothing more
Yeah.
until it comes out the other end, and then we can readdress and take a new direction if we have to.
Right.
This is absolutely the starting line, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree.
And the hope is that it will protect us from things that we don't want. So get it to look more like it belongs in Old Lyme as opposed to, it's a strip right now and commercial only. So see where that goes.
Do you know, one of the things they mentioned in here was a real estate consultant. Do we really need a real estate consultant at this stage? I mean, it's such a long
It's
project.
one of those things where you need to be able to see into the future. So if the recommendation is to do mixed use, you need to A, understand what that would be, and B, understand what kind of infrastructure you would need to have. And in order to understand what you want to design for infrastructure or recommend for infrastructure, you need to know what you're using on the road. So in order to do that, you need to have both pieces working together to understand that.
Yeah, and again, to tie in, to dovetail with that is most times, and again in our experience, the utilities will dictate and determine what is going to be buildable and what's not.
Yeah.
It really does. Utilities drive is more than that, and more than we think, is the driving force behind what can actually be built and constructed.
When you're talking about mixed use, you're going to have a sewer system.
I don't. In my humble opinion, I can never imagine the sewer going through Halls Road.
Well, I agree with you, but you're going to have people living there. I mean, I can tell you from experience. I was a board member of the Old Lyme Marketplace, the Big Y Shopping Center. We're maxed out over there. We can't have another restaurant. We can't have anything because the sewer system we have is the volume. So if you're going to put a whole bunch of houses along Falls Road, it's not going to happen. There's ways of doing it.
So there are several new ways of providing community septic systems.
Oh, yes.
The engineer Jacobson described to me that, they actually have that in Chester. They have it in East Haddam. They're smaller. They're not full sewer systems that are pumping stuff to New London, but they're small community septic systems, which is one of the things that you do have over there at the marketplace. But it's just not big enough, and it's an older
100 years ago. 100 years ago on this committee, we looked into these little standalone things, and I actually believe if somebody developed the place for mixed use, that the owners, we're no longer owners, but the owners now of the marketplace would probably go in with us because it helped them expand their ability. And they're great. They're small. They work very well, and you just have to connect the local people to it. It's a great idea.
Yeah. So it is possible. It's just a matter of getting it coordinated and seeing what happens down the road. I mean, one of the things Newman was offering in their earlier proposals was to do a what was it called? They had a plan for getting. Hold on. Down here. Yeah. I don't have it in front of me, but they had a proposal to help find developers basically for the future, which is another kind of thing that can help a lot to get that moving off the road, as opposed to just a straight master plan that doesn't have that in it. It's helpful to do that, and that might be something you do later when there is an appetite for it. I mean, I think right now we're looking mainly at getting the master plan in place, having a real vision of what the roadscape will be like, and then getting engineers to design that streetscape based on the future of what we want to see on Halls Road. So I think that's possible. I can get there.
Edie,
So-
if we just mentioned Big Y, I am personal friends with the manager, and she said they are doing a major renovation starting in January.
Oh, great.
Top to bottom, inside, outside.
Great.
Good.
Yeah, there was,
They're not going anywhere.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
there were questions about that about 2 years ago, and they actually called up Bonnie, I guess it was, and said, we love it here. You know? So they have a very captured audience here, and I think that's great. I think it's a good thing because it's something we want to hang on to.
Although Matt did mention that he wasn't going to move anything to the street.
Well, he's, we've talked with Matt too from the committee, and I think he would be the last person to do anything because he's got the biggest thing to move around. So, but there's certainly plenty of opportunities on the north side of Halls Road, and maybe the north side is what changes first.
Yeah,
You
good
know?
point.
And I think things will be phased like that. I think it will take time, and even if the sidewalks happen first on the north side and not on the south side, and just get you into that marketplace, that might be what happens for the start. It is after 8 now, and we did have other things, one of which was to introduce Matt, to say welcome to the committee, Matt. And I think,
Glad to be here. Thank you.
yeah.
Oh, Matt, good luck.
And I think, that I believe the next thing to happen is for us to, besides getting any extra glass questions we want for the BSC in place, then we will need to bring this to the Board of Selectmen and with a formal notice that this was what the committee is recommending, and that we're happy to come and talk with you guys, Tim, and if you need more information, and we can walk through the proposal. And I think by then we would also have the municipal contract would be something that would get the BSC to start working on. I know you've signed those before with them because they mentioned that they've done this a few times in the town. So
Yeah, it would be helpful to have just a page or so about where we are, where we're going, and then have the proposed contract with BSC as an attachment. And that can be useful for both the Board of Selectmen and Finance. People have not been thinking about this for a while, so I think it would be wise to say, here's where we are. This is the step we need to take. Here's the money that we intend to spend. Here's the timeline. And you could touch on the DOT, on any landowners that might have commented on what they're doing and so forth, just to show that we're not starting from a cold start.
okay,
And
yep. And I was
that'd be-
thinking we'll need to have a communications piece about this as well. So once we get your okay and the finance okay, we can make it public to the town.
Oh, it's public already. You have CH on the screen here.
Before we sign off, I think we should all commend Edie. This was a tremendous amount of work to put this together and go through these contracts and all the iterations of working with the firms and going back and forth and making sure that they were answering our, providing for our needs and getting this all together. So really good job, Edie.
Yes.
Very good job indeed.
100%. We'd be
Well,
nowhere
hopefully-
without
Hopefully
you.
they'll keep talking to me after all my questions, right? Okay, so unless there's any other business, Cheryl, did you have anything or? Okay. All right, so I do have a motion to adjourn.
Before you do that, though, just
Yeah.
give me the tentative timing as to when you might want to approach the Board of Selectmen. Would that be in a month or?
I'd like to do that right away, as soon as possible. I'd like to get this off and running by
Well, do you want
a
to?
month if we could.
Are we going to have a session with BSC before we package it up and send it out, or no?
I was thinking I could talk with them and get them to give us their, super ultimate final proposal. And then if you want, we could have them come to a Board of Selectmen meeting, if that would help. What do you
Well,
think?
I think Kurt is a very effective ambassador, so that would be probably pretty good. And same with Board of Finance. They meet on the third Tuesday. We meet on the first and third Monday. So,
Okay.
you can let me know when you think you want to show up, and we'll get you on the agenda for sure.
Okay, all right, that sounds good.
Mhm.
So that is, yes, bring Kurt along with us, right? Is that what you're
I
saying?
think that would be good.
Yep.
Certainly, Mary Jo and I are well familiar with Kurt, so, but he's a great person to amplify the message. So,
Yep, very
and
good.
I'm sure he'd be willing to do it.
Yeah, I'd rather have him talk it than me. Okay, that sounds good. I will follow up and get back to you with when they could come, whether it's, so probably we're trying to aim for the third Monday, which I think is, let's look at the calendar, but is that 2 weeks from now or?
Nearly it, yeah. And then the finance would meet the next day, so it'd be back to back if that would be satisfactory for him.
Okay, all right. I will talk with him, and my guess is he'll be happy to come talk with you guys.
Yeah, I'll see him tomorrow
Okay,
on the Soundview thing.
sounds good. Okay,
But I won't say anything.
I move to adjourn.
okay. Anyone second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you all very much, and ever onward.
Thank you, Edie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Great.
Good night.
Thank you, Tim.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Everybody have a nice night.